Hey, this is Steve Rhode, the original Get Out Debt Guy. And with me today is the new Get Out Debt Guy, Damon Day. Say hello, Damon.
How y'all doing?
Today's show is going to be challenging because we're talking about primarily surrounding a post that I just published that is a brain buster, I think. I've been working on it for a while. And instead of being a few-minute read, this one's probably grab a beverage and read because it's long. It's the comprehensive case against the Dave Ramsey way is the only way. But look, I'm going to be honest. This episode won't be easy for some listeners, especially for those who are true believers in Dave's teachings. But that's exactly why we need to have this conversation, because growth comes from questioning, from looking at the facts, even when they make us uncomfortable. And in this episode, we're going to do just that. Honestly, fairly, and with respect. So now let me be clear. We're going to give credit where credit is due. Dave Ramsey has helped millions of people, and we'll absolutely praise him where he gets things right. But we also need to talk openly about the same areas where his approach may not fit everyone and where some of his advice might actually do more harm than good. So buckle up. This one's going to make you think, it might make you feel, and all of that is a good thing. Any additions to that, Damon?
Yeah, I think so what happened was a Facebook post triggered me. I mentioned it to Steve in my frustration about it. And I think I unleashed the Kraken because within, 48 hours, Steve sends me this link to this post he's referencing. And I spent about an hour last night and I still didn't get through the whole thing. I had to finish it up this morning before the podcast. So
I'm sorry.
I was at softball all weekend. I know what Steve was doing all weekend. He's writing this post, but it's very good. It's very detailed. And, math is math. And there's some very good points there. And like Steve said, we're not here to, I think it was very fair to Dave, because it's not that, what Dave says doesn't work. It's just what Dave says doesn't work for everybody. And the triggering part, I guess, for me was when he's just so adamant about, doesn't matter what the situation is, you have to suffer, you have to do it my way, and that's it. There's
Right.
like, he doesn't open the door for anything else, and that's where it gets a lot of people in trouble. And that's the thing that really rubs me the wrong way is it's like, no, I've got my shtick. This is my thing. Everybody's got to do it because it's easy to talk about on stage.
I struggle with people who will make an emotional decision about their debt situation based on what they hear and what they think they hear, or they want to be part of, that club, whatever that club is, whether it's the cheering I'm debt free club, or I'm part of this group, or my church sells or offers this program, and you feel like you belong. I get that. That's powerful stuff. And Dave does an exceptional job creating a community like that.
Yeah.
But where it gets frustrating, has always been frustrating for decades for me, and from you, is when people make decisions based on assumptions and emotion that are not in their best interest, just factually not in their best interest. And they will stand behind that decision even though it screws them out of millions of dollars in retirement. And they're just throwing it away, afraid of what someone else might think. My point of view is, who the hell cares?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, don't let other people make you feel any certain way about your debt situation, other than the fact that you got information, you got consultation, You learned the facts, and then you made the best decision for you. And before I forget, if you have a question about any of this stuff and you want to talk to someone, talk to Damon, and he'll go through this without judgment. Neither of us have judgment about anyone in debt. And you can always reach him through his website at damonday, DamonDay.com. So, Damon, talk us through this. I like you said how it triggered you, but
Yeah.
talk us through this interaction that you observed.
Yeah, well, I see clips of Dave, all the time, his show and everything, and I like Dave. I think I've defended Dave a lot. I like his stuff. I got to tip his hat to the empire that he's built, and it's helped a lot of people, as you said. But it seems like more often than not, I'll see a clip of his, and I'll be like, no, no, that's not right at all. No, that's bad advice. And this particular one. I don't know if I just really connected with the guy. You can hear it in his voice. Is a caller calling into his radio show, and this poor guy, he was $800,000 in debt. He had made a lot of money in the past, but his businesses weren't doing that well, and he was just in a spot. And
Yeah.
him and his wife were kind of struggling to navigate this stuff. They had nowhere near enough money coming in at this point to service that debt. I mean, we're talking about 800 grand in unsecured debt. And so Dave's talking to him, asking these questions, and basically does the Dave style of kind of like your disapproving father,
Mm-hmm.
how the guy got in the situation. And fine, whatever on that, it's fine. But when the guy lays out what the situation is, and Dave asks him, what's going on with this, and well, we have two houses. And the guy says one of them's already for sale, and okay, great, good. Dave says get that sold, blah blah blah. And he goes, what about the one you're living in? It's like, well, there's not really any equity, and Dave just kind of mumbles, okay, we're going to sell that one too. And I was like, wait,
What?
yeah, exactly. So it's like he was, well, you got to get rid of that. But the bottom line was that out of all this, it was very clear the guy had no, clear way of being able to service this debt.
Right.
He had to make more money. And Dave just started saying, okay, well, you got to be a big boy and blah, blah, blah. And this is ridiculous. And you went on a $200,000 vacation. And the guy's like, no, I didn't go on Dave heard $200,000 and there's all of a sudden $200,000 vacation. And the guy was trying to
Mm-hmm.
explain, that's just maybe an estimate of what we've spent over the last 10 years on doing various things. The guy wasn't trying to justify it. He was just saying, we didn't take a $200,000
Yeah.
vacation. But it just all came down to Dave was just saying, you have to work more, you have to make more money, you have to stop spending everything, you have to get rid of everything, and just, basically humble yourself. And this is the part that really got me was the co-host, younger
Mm-hmm.
guy. Not that really necessarily matters. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But he kind of turns to Dave and he goes, Dave, I think this guy was trying to throw him a lifeline, right? And he's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this is $800,000 in debt because this guy's listening to the same thing I'm listening to.
Yeah.
He's sitting next to Dave and hearing Dave tell this guy this, this solution that's never going to work. Everybody listening to the show knows he's not going to be able to pull this off. But
Yeah.
and the guy goes, the co-host goes, at what point, is bankruptcy at least a consideration? And this sets Dave off, never and da-da. I mean, he doesn't say never, but he's just like, no. And the whole thing just came across to me, that Dave was not even giving it a consideration. I felt like, and you have to see this clip, but I felt like
Mm-hmm.
Dave's focus was more about, I want to make sure this guy is punished. I don't want this
Right.
guy to do something that might be, in Dave's mind, lets him off the hook. Is how I felt watching this. The way he was kind of reacting to the suggestion of just, maybe he's in a little too deep. Maybe we just need to get a fresh start. And it reminded me of because Dave's whole point was he did this to himself. This is a lifestyle issue. And Dave would always say, bankruptcy, and he said this in the clip, that bankruptcy just addresses the symptom. It doesn't address the spending problem. It just addresses the symptom. And I'm like, well, that may be true, right?
Yeah.
But then I start thinking of, okay, well, let's say Dave was a doctor, right? Dave's a
Yeah.
doctor.
There you go.
And let's say you're having some health challenges. Maybe you haven't made the best decisions. We've all been there. I had some pie last night, right? And so let's say maybe you're a little bit overweight, or you've been a drinker or a smoker or whatever, right? We all have
Right.
our things. And now you're having some health challenges, and you go to your doctor, and the doctor, gives the whole analysis and looks at it and, well, you did this to yourself. I mean,
That's
this is
right.
your
Get the hell out of here.
lifestyle. This is this. I have some medicine that can take away your pain that you're feeling right now. But that pain is just the symptom of your bad choices in life. And because of that, I'm not going to give you this medicine, because I don't want you I want you to suffer through this pain so you can
Yeah.
sit there and think about what you've done. And then, I mean, I was just like, could you imagine if a doctor was just like, no, this medicine just treats those symptoms. The real problem is what you're putting in your mouth, right?
Yeah,
So
I know.
I'm not going to
Makes
give
no
you the
sense.
medicine. I'm not going to give you the medicine. Get out of here and just stop putting that stuff in your mouth, and then come back, and then we'll talk about the medicine in 5 years and see how it's going. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
put your big
exactly
boy
what Dave
pants
did.
on
Yeah,
and put the Doritos down and then come back later.
yeah. Like the co-host is like, hey, we have some medicine, Dave. And Dave's like, no. This guy needs to suffer. It's his own fault. I don't like, and this is the stuff like that. That's the part that really pissed me off. That's
So-
the guy who's going to screw up his financial life trying to pay us $800,000 if he listens to Dave. But the way in which it was delivered, and that feeling I got of Dave just wants to make this guy suffer because he feels like he deserves this. I don't know what's in Dave's head, but that's how it felt to me, and it pissed
Well,
me
after
off.
you dropped this story on me, I was actually driving down the road, just kind of absent-mindedly. Thank God I have a Tesla that drives itself. But I was thinking about everything that you had said, and this thought popped into my head. I actually had to pull over and write it down, because at my age, I will forget it. But it was that whole thing about people. I don't want to. I'm not singling out Dave Ramsey as a person. All right. So let me say, when people try to cast your debt situation in sort of biblical terms or Christian terms or guilt or shame or whatever, and they tell you that this is your own damn fault, put your big boy pants on. I like that expression. And you have to dig yourself out. And what I had to pull over, because what I thought was, if we're going to approach this in a biblical way, isn't the Bible full of more forgiveness and understanding than it is beating yourself up and self-flagellation? Yeah, punishment. So that really got me thinking, and that was a giant rabbit hole that I went down. And we've talked before about the different parts of the Bible that talk about forgiveness and everything else. But tell me if this is a fair assessment, Damon. This is in the post. I want your feedback. Tell me if this is correct, that Ramsey's approach is that debt is a sin that requires suffering to atone for it. You must sacrifice relationships, health, retirement, and peace to repay it. Walking away is a moral failure and has spiritual consequences. Your worth to God is tied to your debt repayment. Shame is a motivator, and financial bondage proves your character. Would you say that those are accurate assessments?
It seems like it. That's the way it made me feel when he was talking to this guy, and that might be a good approach for some people. Might like, what? That's what I need. That's what I deserve, and that they're into that. But I I refuse to believe that somebody's not capable of saying, okay, I messed up, I screwed up. We've all been there. I've had my fair share of financial screw ups over the years, right? I don't have to then now suffer for a certain amount of time before I realize, yeah, that was a couple of dumb decisions I made or whatever, or I should have different. I'm going to do better moving forward. To me, the two, you don't have to make somebody sacrifice 5 years of their life, or in many cases more, because
Millions
the 5 year
of dollars
payoff,
too.
the 5 years of payoff, that's the fantasy. Oh, you're going to get this all paid off in 5 years. The reality is 95% of people that try that, 99% probably, let's be generous, say 95%, they have this plan, they lay it out, life is life, guys. Life
Yeah,
happens. With the
life happens.
commercial, life comes at you fast, right? But the most people, it's like, oh, well, he paid off in 5 years. No. And when Steve does the math, and in this post that we're talking about, he lays out the math on all these different scenarios. It's a really good, comprehensive post. It's a great read. Um, but he lays it out based on Dave's fantasy of you'll have this debt paid off in 5 years, and bankruptcy and just ripping the band-aid off, just getting out of the debt as quickly as possible. The math almost always comes out ahead on just filing the BK and wiping it out and getting a fresh start. And that's with Steve giving you the very generous assumption that you are going to be able to Dave Ramsey your way out of this in 3 to 5 years, when the reality is most people can't get it done that fast because life is life. And so the numbers get even more screwed up trying to follow that method if the income doesn't warrant the income and your age don't
Right.
warrant the ability to pay this off.
So, that guilt shame approach, that is one biblical approach.
Steve,
The
before
thing
you
that
jump to
got
the next point, tell everybody
Yeah.
the post that we're talking about. What's the easy way to find it on your website?
You know what? I'm going to post a link to it right on the homepage, a permanent link, because this is going to be a core post, I believe. So go to getoutofdebt.org, look at the homepage, and you will see the link.
Yeah. And again, I want to preface this with, we're not saying don't do what Ramsey says and that's bad. He has a lot of good stuff.
No.
Dave had this innate ability to take basic financial information and turn it into an empire. So kudos to Dave. I mean, his
Mm-hmm.
basic stuff is just math and it works, but I've been triggered lately by his delivery. That's my thing.
All right. So guilt and shame, if you're going to use that as a biblical approach to dealing with your debt, here's the thing that made me pull over is, why can't biblical forgiveness be the way of dealing with your debt as well? I mean, debt is not a spiritual problem. Debt is a practical problem. It's like saying that, God made it rain for 40 days and 40 nights, and, the the people that drowned, that was their problem, not God making it rain. Some things are out of your control. Sometimes
Yeah.
it just rains. And anyway, so even the biblical approach, God's system includes regular debt forgiveness, like the Jubilee or Sabbath years or whatever. Walking away via legal means that you're using the system God's principles inspired, because bankruptcy is actually inspired by
Mm-hmm.
the Jubilee, or, the Sabbath, the other things that are in the Bible. And here's the thing: your personal worth to your creator, to your God, whoever that is not tied to your credit score. There's nobody in, heaven or wherever that is sitting there looking up your Experian credit score to determine if you're going to heaven. That has nothing to do with it.
Anything under 680, the gates are closed.
Yeah. But we have a program you can buy your way in.
Yeah. We have a program.
So I don't know about you, but, people's individual God may care more about how you do better moving forward, the things that you learn. Damon, you've heard me say this for years, which is, there's no sense wasting a perfectly good mistake. If you made a financial mistake and it was beyond or out of your control, or even if you just made a stupid mistake.
Yeah, even if it wasn't, so what?
Right. You can still take action, eliminate the pain, the cut, whatever your doctor analogy was. And you can learn from what happened, and you can do better moving forward. So, I mean, here's what.
My doctor analogy was, just imagine you go see your doctor, you're in
Mm-hmm.
pain, and your doctor says, well, it's your fault, I'm not going to give you the medicine.
Right.
That's what Dave Ramsey is doing to a lot of people. It's your fault, I'm not going to give you the medicine. Would you
All
keep
right.
going to that doctor?
Well, here's the funny thing is that many years ago, probably almost 30 years ago, I went to my doctor and I said, this is not a joke. This is a true story. I went to my doctor, my right knee always hurts, but I don't want to, I hesitate in taking any sort of painkillers because I don't want to mask the pain. And she looked at me and she goes, that's what it's for. Ah, yes, I will take the painkillers. But okay, so now you alluded to, how I highlight some numbers.
Yeah.
Hopefully people are still listening to what we're saying right now. I want to give you, again, Damon, I want you to call me out if this is wrong information, if you disagree with me. But I want to give you two paths on which path makes you a better steward of God's resources. So the scenario is you're 48 years old with $70,000 income and 55 grand in debt. Okay, let's take the shame guilt approach. You need to spend the next 5 years paying off this debt. You must sacrifice family time, health, peace for righteousness. Your ages 48 to 53 are spent in stress, shame, and survival mode. You don't start saving really for retirement till 53, and even then you'll retire with $512,000, nothing to sneeze at in today's dollars. You'll do minimal giving during the payoff years, minimal service. You have no time or energy to donate or contribute to anything else, but you'll prove your moral worth through suffering. Okay, now compare that to the forgiveness approach, the biblical forgiveness approach. You file for bankruptcy at 48. You immediately begin saving for retirement. Your years 48 to 67 are now spent building, serving, and giving, and you will retire with $1.1 million in your retirement fund or more. Through these years, you can engage in generous giving throughout. You can participate in active service to church and community. You have a larger capacity to help others. And you will learn to become an excellent steward of time and money. So, I mean, which approaches makes more sense?
Yeah. Well, and it's obvious too, but with Dave's whole you have to suffer kind of thing to learn the lesson, I don't think you do. I think people have a hard enough time making the decision oftentimes to file for bankruptcy. And we're not saying bankruptcy is the only way either. We're not saying, well, if Dave Ramsey's way doesn't work, you got to file bankruptcy. We're just
Right.
comparing the two. But in my experience, most people, once they file bankruptcy, their mindset is, I'm getting my crap together. I'm doing better
Right.
moving forward. I don't want to do that again. It wasn't a fun
Right.
experience. I just emotionally, I don't want to have to do that. And so they can learn those lessons and then get a fresh start moving forward. And the thing that I really can't stress enough, even though I've already mentioned it, is all these numbers assume you'll have that debt paid off in 5 years. And
Right.
there are no stats on this because Dave Ramsey is not an official program. Nobody tracks the stuff. I would venture to guess the failure rate of people that read Dave's book and
Yeah.
go to his classes and say, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to get our budget. And I would venture to guess at the failure rate, the legit failure rate. And when I define failure,
I have a number in my head. So on the count of three, let's say what our numbers in our head are. All right.
This will be interesting.
You ready? Okay.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. 90%.
90%. that wasn't planned. Yeah, okay. Well, doctor, do you concur? I concur. So that's the thing. Nobody ever talks about how many people that try this actually are able to do it. Most people can't. You know how many clients I have that said we tried Dave Ramsey? I bet you 90% of the people listening to this podcast, so I guess total maybe 90 people right now, but it'll grow. We're growing this thing, right? 90% of the people listening to this have probably at one time or another tried the Dave Ramsey approach to get themselves out of the debt. Most of my clients come to me and say, I already tried I can't do it. It's not working for me. This happened. car broke down, got furloughed, whatever. I mean, a million things happen because you do all this math. It's like, okay, man, we're going to sacrifice. We're going to do all this. We have no extra cushion and we're going to do this for 5 years. And we're going to be debt free. Well, who lives for a 5-year period of their life where nothing happens?
Right.
I mean, crap
Not
happens
me.
every other week, dude. You know? Especially if you got kids, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just there's no end to the next thing that is needing money from you. I mean, when you have a family, I get all the time with my kids' sports and everything. It's like, wait, we're doing another fundraiser again. Like my kids' sport, we're doing fundraisers, right? All the
Yeah.
time. And I'm one of those guys that it's like, I don't want to bother my family and friends because they got
Right.
their own kids too.
Right.
They're doing the fun. So I'm always just like, how much do I got to pay for what's the goal of this fundraiser? Right. And that's it. And it's every other month fundraiser for this. And we're doing a raffle and we're doing Super Bowl squares and we're doing that. That's normal life for most people. Stuff comes up that is not even in the budget for. And it's like, well, I either don't do it or I pay for it. Right. And so that blows your budget. And this whole fantasy, we're going to have our debt paid off in 5 years, rarely ever even works out. So when you factor that in, you got to factor in how many people don't even ever actually get out of debt. They just slave away and sacrifice. You're talking about sacrificing 5 years of your life?
Yeah, but
Unless
it's a double guilt situation, right? Because you feel guilty because you're not repaying your debt, and then you can't, and then you feel guilty because the program failed.
So you keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. And before you know it, 15 years later, you're still in debt and you've just sacrificed your entire adult life for the most part.
All right, let's go back to my two examples, right? Person A did the I'm going to beat myself up approach to repay my debt. So which person was the better steward here? The person that honored a debt at the cost of their retirement, their health, and years of service, who gave minimally for 5 years while paying the debt off, quote, I'm doing quotes, did they really? They have no energy for service during their rice and beans years, which I love that. The retirement is barely adequate, and they spent 5 years in financial bondage. Or person B. This is not an either or. This is just a thought exercise, okay?
Yeah.
They used a legal or biblical principle on debt forgiveness to become financially free. They gave generously for 19 years. They served actively in their church and community. Their retirement is secure, and ages 48 to 67 were spent in financial freedom. Here's the big question for all of our religious listeners. Is God more glorified by the 70-year-old with no debt but no savings, working until death and a burden on his children, or a 70-year-old who filed bankruptcy at 48, learned from their mistake, rebuilt wisely, served generously for 20 years, and left a legacy?
Yeah. That doesn't require an answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you just from a curiosity standpoint, you guys got to go to getoutofdebt.org and look at this post. It is, Steve put a lot of work into that. I watched a Facebook reel, got triggered, made a phone call. Steve spent the whole weekend putting this all together for you guys. I'm telling you, I unleashed the Kraken. Steve I think he's like finally letting it all, his frustrations just all out, just put everything in one post of the math is the math, read through it, get the information, and then decide for yourself based on your circumstances what the right answer might be for you. We're not saying Dave's strategy doesn't ever work. We've always said Dave's strategy never works for everybody.
Yeah, there's no one-size-fits-all solution that fits anyone.
The fact that we both came up with 90% is still cracking me up, because that, I swear, that was not scripted at all. We don't. If you can't tell, this show's not scripted.
Yeah.
Because whoever's writing my script is all over the place.
They're on a daily diatribe. That's my favorite word for you.
Every other line goes squirrel.
Hey, what do you call a fish that wears a bow tie?
What?
Sophisticated.
You're stupid.
That was my dad joke of the day.
So,
All right.
are there any other main
So
points? Well, I know there's a
yeah,
ton of main points, but that we want to cover on the podcast.
well, I think that I think you would appreciate that. Again, it's totally unscripted, no prior planning, but I think that you would appreciate the fact that if anybody disagrees or has a different point of view, or even better, just wants to talk it through, not be persuaded, not be berated, not be talked down to, but just talk all of this through, get in touch with Damon. He does free consults. You can pick his brain. You can talk to him about your particular situation. And then both Damon and myself always encourage you to get information and then go away. Let it percolate for a couple days. Think about it, ponder on it, and then come back and let's make a more informed decision. Nobody's trying to talk you into anything. I'm my goal is just to give you as much information as possible. Whatever your ultimate decision that you make, I applaud, I support you. That's your decision. That's not my job to tell you you're making a wrong choice or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell my clients every time when I'm, giving them information, giving them homework, I say, hey, look, it's your life, it's your money, it's your credit. So it's your decision. My job is not to tell you what you have to do. My job is to say, well, based on your circumstances, here's some options that we can look at. And here's the pros and cons. And here's how they're going to affect you over the next couple of years. And then you have to decide based on that, what you think your usually what we call your best worst option is.
Right.
Right? Because none of these options, if you're in a whole bunch of debt and you're going to try to dig out, none of these options are going to make you just start doing cartwheels. Like you're not going to be super excited because anything we do is going to require some kind of sacrifice on your part, whether it's credit score sacrifice, lifestyle sacrifice, or somewhere in the middle. So you're not going to be doing cartwheels, but you need to find what's the best worst option for you. And keep in mind, keeping the status quo and not doing anything is still a decision. And it's usually
Right.
the worst decision, just continuing to pay because you're not sure what to do and you're stuck in that paralysis of analysis. So figuring out a strategy to obtain your financial goal is really important. Even if you have the cash to keep putting it off, that's a very expensive strategy.
So as we wind down this podcast, one of the things that I really found fascinating, I wrote about this probably 10 years ago, I think, about the number of churches that actually file bankruptcy. Thousands of churches file bankruptcy. And, it's always made me wonder, I think I do link to this in this post, but it's always made me wonder, why can the church file bankruptcy, but it's shameful or immoral for me to file bankruptcy? And while I created this, I did find this information about what some churches have said about their bankruptcy. Like, we must protect our mission and continuing serving the public.
Yeah.
Well, why can't I protect my mission of being, keeping my family safe and helping them to do better moving forward and protect them? Or a church that says, well, we have to file so we can restructure our debt and rebuild responsibly. Again, how does that not apply to you personally? Or we explored all options and bankruptcy was the most responsible choice.
Well, I think we might have stumbled upon something, Steve.
What's
So
that?
you mentioned lots of churches file for bankruptcy.
Yes.
Maybe, it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but stay with me. Maybe it's because a lot of churches, I don't want to say push, but subscribe to Dave Ramsey's methods for the people of their church. So maybe people in the churches that are going bankrupt are all not able to afford to tithe because they're spending all their extra money slaving away, repaying debt. So they're not able to tithe and therefore the churches go bankrupt versus if a lot of those people would just wipe out their debt, they would have extra
get back
cash
to
flow.
tithing.
They could tithe and keep the church from going bankrupt. I'm just saying. It's a thought.
Yeah. Or
It's probably totally wrong, but it just popped into my head.
no. Or the church that says God's grace covers our mistakes. We're moving forward in faith. Um, well, why can't God's graces cover my mistakes?
Yeah. And again, this just all came up because I just could not understand why the co-host would say, "Hey, he was asking at what point it was," because the guy says, he goes, "Dave, we're talking about $800,000 in
Yeah.
debt. At what point is bankruptcy a consideration?" He's just opening the door. At what point is bankruptcy a consideration? And Dave just like kind of went off on that, and no, and it's a lifestyle, and you just gotta, save and make more money. And it was just like, are you kidding me? Like, you can't even, like, not once did Dave say, well, it sucks and it's really hard on you, or whatever he wants to say. But not once did he say, you probably should at least consult with the bankruptcy attorney just to kind of see what that
Yeah.
would look like. Not one time did he even like open that door a little bit. And that just, like I said, triggered me, for lack of a.
Well, here's the thing. It's very difficult, I think, for people who listen to this podcast, maybe to understand that while we talk about this subject a lot, we are not advocating that for you, bankruptcy is the only solution.
Correct.
I feel like I end up talking about bankruptcy a lot because I think it's a topic that people just don't understand or misunderstand. And so there's a lot of information to get out there to overcome those misunderstandings. Debt solutions, whatever the best solution is for you in your situation, is going to be unique. Every debt situation is unique as your fingerprints. And
Yeah.
so that's why we need to factor in things like your age, your experience, your ability to earn, sacrifices you're willing to make, how much you already have saved. Does your employer have a matching 401k? All these things. Like Damon, when you talk to somebody, you're going over a whole range of things. And the answer usually makes itself apparent along the way.
Yeah, I have clients that are currently right now using Dave Ramsey's methods to get out of debt. It was a situation that worked for them. I have other clients that are using Dave Ramsey's method that I was like, are you sure? And,
Mhm.
I walk a fine line between, gentle prodding and pointing things out. But again, it's not my life. It's not my money. It's not my retirement. It's not my credit. It's not my job. My clients hire me as an advisor. So my job is to advise and be there to support them along the way. And the other thing we do is like, okay, if you want to try method A or method B or whatever,
Yeah.
what's going to be our backup if that doesn't work? Life is life, right? So there's nothing wrong if somebody's absolutely adamant about, I really want to pay this off. There's nothing wrong with creating a strategy that says, okay, let's give this, 6 months. Let's give it the old college try for 6 months. Let's do the best we can based on your circumstances. Let's put together that plan and let's reassess how it's going in 6 months, right? There's nothing wrong with that. In
Mhm.
6 months, it might be going gangbusters. Things might be falling into place. You got to raise at work. You're throwing extra money at the debt snowball or whatever it is. And hey, great, let's just keep going. Or in 6 months, you might go, yeah, well, this happened and the car broke down and that happened and I needed this extra money for this. And my freaking kids team had another fundraiser that I had to pay for. And whatever it
Mhm.
is, and 6 months later, we might be, haven't been able to make much progress, haven't been able to save much money. We really wanted to do it this way, but now we see, now that we've been on our spending plan, we've been
Yeah.
living like that, we've been sacrificing, and we're still not making much headway. We are now realizing that this strategy is probably just not going to work for us. So maybe now we can get more aggressive, and that's fine. We don't have to jump into a bankruptcy or jump into
No.
negotiating debts. There's no rules here. I don't toot my own horn, but when clients call me, there's no rules. Like, I don't have to fit you into this spot or fit you into
Yeah.
that spot. It's,
Yeah, you're not
hey,
trying to sell them a widget.
we could do whatever, right? That we could do whatever you think is going to work. And if you think what's going to work is not what I think is going to work, I will tell you that, but I'm still going to support you and put together a strategy based on what you want to do. And then we can use real-time information and feedback to see if it's working or if we need to make changes. Dave doesn't allow for any of that. It's just, here's the steps, go do the tiny feet, and that's
Yep.
it.
It occurs to me that you're more like a financial decorator.
A decorator.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Are you
People
saying
don't need
lipstick
to,
on a pig, Steve? What are we talking about
no,
here?
I'm saying that all the rooms in your house don't need to be painted white,
Yeah.
right? That every room can have a different theme or purpose or whatever your personal preference is. And sometimes you need to go to Sherwin-Williams and get all those paint things and then make an individual decision about what color you want to paint your room.
Yeah.
White is not the only color.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and if
All
David
right.
just changed his approach, I would be fine with that. Like, come on, Dave, listen to some guy on a podcast that has a couple hundred listeners.
I mean, what is this is almost a rhetorical question, but what is the downside of helping people to like think through these thoughts instead of berating them that there's only one guilt-ridden way?
Yeah, I don't understand why Dave can't just pivot a little bit and be like, well, there's multiple options. Here's what I think is right, and here's what I think would make sense for you. But here's what bankruptcy would do, and here you can negotiate the debts, or you can lower the interest rates, or you can get some consolidation loans, or whatever it is. Like, what's so bad about giving people more than one option? That's what
And
I always
allowing
get.
people, it's kind of the libertarian way of getting out of debt, which is here's all the information and all your options. You make your own decision.
Yeah.
I don't understand why that's wrong or bad.
I think, and again, I can't speak for Dave, but just from this, I've seen a lot of his stuff, read his stuff over the years. I think a lot of it is just he's coming from the standpoint, and I know he wouldn't phrase it like this, and maybe I shouldn't be phrasing it like this, but and it's my feeling on it. I feel like he's coming from the standpoint of, especially on the stuff with credit cards, and you can't have any debt, you can't use credit responsibly, and debt. I think he just comes from the standpoint of he believes most people are not capable of being smart with money. That's his, I think, core belief is that if you give people options, they will choose the wrong one every time. So I
Right.
think he feels like to do the most good, and I could be wrong, but maybe I think he feels like to do the most good, I'm just going to take all options away from everybody and don't let anybody make any choices for themselves. Right or wrong, that I think that's where that comes from and why he's so immovable on his points of it's just like, no, this is the way to do it. So, hey, you're too stupid to handle a credit card, so you can't have one. And then
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, and everybody's painted white. Everybody's too stupid to have a credit card, so you just can't have one. And I guess, I mean, I don't know. It's like, if you had a doctor that's just everybody's too stupid, so you have to only eat this diet, otherwise you're going to make the wrong choice. Here's your meal plan, and you can't eat anything else. No, I don't care if you think it might be helpful. I don't care if you're missing iron. I don't care. Nope. This is what you got to eat. Everybody eats salads. That's it.
Yeah, you go into the emergency room with a broken leg, but they're having an appendix out day.
Yeah. Eventually
Everyone
it's going to
gets
have
their
to come
appendix.
out. Eventually it's going to have to come out. You might as well just get it out now. You're here, ain't you? We got a 2-for-1 special, but I only have one appendix.
Hey, why did the golfer take 2 pairs of pants to the golf course?
Why, Steve?
In case he got a hole in one.
Nope. I think they're graduating to grandpa jokes.
All right. Well, I got to wind up Dave Ramsey because I need to go work on my true crime podcast all day.
Yeah.
This week's all about kidnapping. So if you're into true crime, go visit my site, truecrimeunheard.com. It won't solve your life, but it'll distract you.
No. And if you've tried Dave Ramsey's strategy for getting out of debt and it didn't work, or you're struggling with it, give me a call. We can talk about it. We can talk about other options. Yeah. And if you haven't tried it yet, DamonDay.com. If you haven't tried it yet and you want, again, I've got clients that are trying to pay off their debt in a traditional way. That's still a viable option. We're not saying that doesn't work, but as Steve and I have agreed, apparently, that it doesn't work for about 90% of the people in one form or another.
Well, but I didn't just come up with that number. Okay. You might have.
Oh, I came up with it just based on a feeling, so it's anecdotal, based on a feeling of the people that I talked to. But granted, my sample is skewed because the people that I talked to were all struggling with debt.
Well, I came up with that number based on data because the closest thing that we have where we have reliable statistics is the success rate of Chapter 13 bankruptcies, which is generally a 5-year repayment plan, where the vast majority of them fail because people can't stick with it for 5 years.
Well, and keep this in mind. If you want to use the Chapter 13 data, oftentimes in a Chapter 13, you're not paying the full amount plus interest back. Right. So if that has, what is it, like a 70%, 70-something% failure rate in Chapter 13?
It's 77.
So okay. So if we in actual data showing 77% of people that file Chapter 13 bankruptcies, which is a 5-year repayment plan inside the bankruptcy where they have a fixed monthly payment that they have to pay every single month, and then you're done after 5 years, 77% of those fail. Well, then what do you think the failure rate is of people that aren't in the protection of the bankruptcy and they're trying to snowball the entire amount plus interest when oftentimes in Chapter 13, you don't have to pay back the entire amount plus 25% interest. If the failure rate is 77% without that high interest, what do you think it is with the high interest?
90%.
That is hilarious, actually.
All right, Damon, I will see ya.
Peace.